Welcome to Front Office Pros. I'm Steve and this is Joe. Today we're going to be talking about 3 players that you should be selling now as of week 10 for the rest of the season and possibly beyond. When we say sell now, we're talking about specifically their production. We're not expecting a lot from them, and most likely they shouldn't be in your lineups. So let's talk about the first player, Joe. We're going to talk about running back DeAndre Swift. He just recently played the Chicago Bears, and he had 6 carries for 6 yards, 1 touchdown, and 3 targets for 1 catch and 6 yards.
Yeah, Steve, Swift has definitely been disappointing since coming back from the injury here. And it's really just been, Lions kind of moving forward with Jamal Williams. And then, they have tended to sprinkle in a third guy too. Reynolds was mixed in there for a little bit, but he was hurt. But then you still saw Justin Jackson yesterday. And I mean, Swift really just hasn't been effective. I mean, plus since coming back, he's had 5 carries, 2 carries, and then now 6. And then his efficiency with those carries hasn't been too good either. And then he's kind of had a steady decline over the last few weeks of even targets from the receiving end. He got you the touchdown to get you 6 points in most leagues and kind of made it decent. But if it wasn't for that, he just would have been awful.
Yeah, he's the ultimate ceiling play right now because it's more than likely he'll bust for you instead of the boom. Thankfully, he got that touchdown, or else he practically would have gave you a goose egg. So for me, I don't see how I can start him moving forward. I mean, if Jamal Williams is the guy you'd rather have, and I don't see his carries going away. They've trusted him now for the duration of this year. Is getting heavily involved, and he's produced very well. Swift is not right. He's not healthy. If I were I don't know why the Lions just don't put him on IR or something and get him back to when he's fully healthy, because they're playing him not at 100%, and it's showing. I just don't see where it turns around for him at this point for the season.
Honestly, I agree with you. I don't know why the Lions don't just put him on IR, because it's frustrating for fantasy owners because he's technically, active for these games, but yet he just hasn't been effective. And it's like, well, if DeAndre Swift is active and playing, how can I not play him, even though his production has been so bad? Just one of those things, because he's a name and people invested, quite a bit for him. But I mean, even with the great matchup of the Bears yesterday, I mean, only 1 yard average, 1 yard per carry, just crazy.
At this point, you need to bench him for the foreseeable future. I mean, I don't think you could drop him. I mean, that would be rough. I don't think I could do that. But you bench him in hopes there'll be probably one game that he shows signs of life again. And maybe, the NFL, the season can change on a dime. So, things can happen. But at this point, you got to bench him. And from a dynasty perspective, if I had a man, I really don't like him for the future. I mean, he's so tough because you see these flashes of greatness from the guy. Just he looks unbelievable, but he can't stay on the field. And like you always say, Joe, the best ability is availability.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what I stick by myself. And yeah, his value going forward in Dynasty, man, is definitely a tough one.
I would really be considering my options moving forward with him, for the foreseeable future. So our next player is another running back who was highly drafted, but the floor has fallen completely out, and that's running back Clyde Edwards-Helaire. And the Chiefs just recently played the Jaguars, and his stat line was 0 rushing attempts and 2 targets for no catches, meaning that he got you an absolute goose.
Yeah, it's a tough one, Steve. I don't understand what's going on with this Chiefs backfield, man. I mean, they even invested what I think a first round pick for Clyde,
Yep, they
like the
did.
30th overall just a couple of years ago. So I mean,
Yep.
to have a first round pick invested in a running back, and then a couple of years later, like just not utilizing him at all. And it's, I don't like, even he's shown flashes when he has played. So I don't quite understand. It's just that they like Pacheco that much, I guess. Because he's completely just absolutely surpassed Clyde at this point. Even they're using McKinnon more. I mean, Clyde played a season low 4 snaps yesterday, which is just absolutely insane.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I mean, there's no way, you can't start this guy. Maybe if one of those other guys gets hurt, but I don't know. Can you drop Clyde Edwards-Helaire at this point? I mean,
Oh,
obviously in a redraft setting, I mean,
yeah.
obviously dynasty you wouldn't necessarily drop him, but
Oh, in a redraft setting, I am dropping him. I think it's safe to say that you can drop him, and I have no issue with it. We knew he was in for regression. It was going to happen. The reason why he continued to do well was he kept getting touchdowns, even though his pretty low usage. Now, like I said, the bottom's completely fallen out. So unless some injury happens or something changes within that offense, it's going to be Pacheco and McKinnon. Now, I did see McKinnon drop a few, I felt like, watching the game. So, maybe he gets back involved. But again, we knew he was gonna hit regression. It was gonna happen. And there's so many options in that offense. To me, I would drop him. And then from a dynasty perspective, I would expect the Chiefs not to accept that 5th-year option. He's only 23 years old. I don't know. I mean, to me, you're not going to see him possibly bounce back until he goes to a new team. And that's going to be at least not next year. It'd be a year after that until he's a free agent. So from a dynasty value, I think his value might be shot.
yeah, and kudos to Andrew in our league for selling high on the guy. I was considering trading for him and almost gave up Jerry Jeudy in the deal for him. So man, am I glad I didn't end up pulling the trigger on that, because you just never know what to expect from him, and now we know he's got the ability to even goose you. So
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, I believe in that trade, Andrew
yeah, you got
received Javonte Williams
Javante.
out of it, so that worked out pretty good for him. And even another trade, James Robinson was traded. Man, they traded those guys right at the right moment for both of those players. It's just crazy, really.
Yeah. Yeah, it just shows you the in a dynasty setting, the lack of running backs out there, and even the depth on your team, and people that are starving to get somebody to play. And obviously you saw the values that these guys were giving up too. So
Yeah, and that's just scarcity for you. At the time, Robinson, they got a few 24 second round pick out of it. I thought it was a decent deal, and then all of a sudden, we saw what happened to him. So it's crazy how things can change.
yeah, absolutely.
All right, so our last player that we recommending you to sell him for the remainder of the season and possibly beyond is wide receiver Brandin Cooks. The Houston Texans played the New York Giants yesterday, and his stat line was 7 targets for 4 catches and 37 yards and a rushing attempt for 5 yards.
Yeah, Steve, I'm selling Brandon Cooks on the standpoint of him being a wide receiver 2 / what people thought before the season started as a, potential league winner for you as well. He's just not that. I mean, he could still be a potential flex worthy guy because he's, still been involved. I mean, not as heavily as you would like, but in the last 4 games, he's gotten 4 catches. The yardage really hasn't been there too much, but he's still involved. There's potential on a good week. He's got a couple of decent matchups coming up against the Commanders and the Dolphins. Maybe things are better, but definitely, no longer a fixture in your wide receiver 2 spot in your lineup for sure.
Well, I mean, the thing was, he actually fared pretty well with Davis Mills when he was a rookie last year, and he was pretty heavily targeted, so we expected much of the same. For whatever reason, they can't get on the same page. I mean, Mills has not been good, to be honest. So, and that offense runs through Dameon Pierce. I mean, you've heard it as much with Lovie Smith. They want to run the ball, and Pierce is getting the lion's share of, I'd say, the opportunities in that offense. I agree with you. I think when we say sell, we need to qualify that. And what we mean by it is we're demoting him, basically. He's no longer a wide receiver 2. You no longer play him in your lineups. I would say more than likely he's in a flex consideration. Like you said, I think he'll have some interesting weeks, but if you've been starting him as a wide receiver for you week in, week out, you're probably losing games right now.
Yeah, absolutely. There's definitely better options at this point out there, that can get you better, more consistent points for sure. I think partly due to that is the emergence of Nico Collins has been a guy that's been more involved in the offense recently as well. And then, surprisingly, that Moore as well for the Texans has been getting more involved as well. So that kind of goes along with it. But yeah, definitely, spot start flex consideration for Cooks going forward.
Yeah, from a dynasty perspective, he'll probably be there again next year. His contract is a mammoth one, unless they trade him for like a 6th or 7th round pick or something of that nature, just to appease him and him going elsewhere. Because obviously we heard he wanted to go to a different team. If he does stay, there's so much unknown with him. That's the problem with dynasty. Will he be on another team if he stays? Will Bryce Young possibly or C.J. Stroud be the quarterback? You have John Mechie, who they drafted. Who is out for the year, and he'll be most likely, you'd hope, coming back next year. So a lot of unknown. He's 29 years old. We know when receivers start getting up in that age, past 30, things start breaking down. So I would say his dynasty outlook is not favorable for him, moving forward. So it's kind of a tough. You got to make tough decisions when it comes to Cooks right now.
Yeah, especially in the dynasty leagues, as you mentioned, there's, so much unknown between him, the team. Will he still be with the Texans? But I don't know if they will trade him because, they had an opportunity there at the deadline and their asking price was too high. Maybe it comes down in the offseason, they do get something done, but it'll be interesting, kind of a wait and see approach there.
So that was 3 players that we're telling you that you should sell now as of week 10. For the rest of the season and possibly beyond as far as their production. We're a new channel and we create several videos on a weekly basis. So we encourage you to like this video, hit the subscribe button for this channel, and hit the notification bell. And let us know if you have comments. Put them down below. Do you agree with Joe and I about these are the players that we'd recommend that you should be selling moving forward? And do you have other players that you're possibly considering, benching them or even possibly dropping them? For the remainder of the season. Go ahead and shoot us a message. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time.